Our second reading this morning is from Acts, and if you're not familiar with the book of Acts, it's the story of the early church, how they started forming together in little houses in different communities and became the church. So this is Acts 16. During the night, Paul had a vision. There stood a man of Macedonia pleading with him and saying, "Come over to Macedonia and help us." When he had seen the vision, we immediately tried to cross over to Macedonia, but being convinced that God had called us to proclaim the good news to them. On the Sabbath day, we went outside the gate by the river, where we supposed there was a place of prayer, and we sat down and spoke to the women who had gathered there. A certain woman named Lydia, a worshiper of God, was listening to us. She was from the city of Tyrethia and a dealer in purple cloth. The Lord opened her heart to listen eagerly to what was said by Paul. When she and her household were baptized, she urged us, saying, "If you have judged me to be faithful to the Lord, come and stay at my home." And she prevailed upon us. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
I'm going to pose for you a question this morning that I would like for you to think about throughout this sermon. I want you to think about it throughout the rest of the worship service. And when you go home and do whatever it is that you do on a Sunday, I want you to discuss this question too. If it's making lunch, if it's visiting with friends and family, if it's probably not going to the park on a day like this, but whatever you do the rest of the day, keep this question on the top and tip of your mind. Why do we do this? Why did you come here this morning? Why did you maybe set an alarm to get up in time? Why did you pick out clothes that you deemed appropriate to wear to a church service? Why did you pick this particular day at this particular time to come into this particular room this morning? Why do we do this? Well, if you ask yourself that question, you probably get a bunch of different answers. And I asked that question throughout my vast 32 years of living, of why do I do this? Why are we here? And if I look back at the years that I've lived and done church stuff, if you asked me at 10, as an elementary school kid, why do you do this? Well, the answer is easy. There's cookies at church, of course, that's why I do this. And I get to play basketball in the parking lot with my dress shoes on. And I get a good reason to pick out a fancy, colorful tie to wear on a Sunday morning. I don't do that throughout the week, so great reasons for a 10-year-old to come to church, right? Fast forward a couple years in high school, somewhere around 15, 16 years old. You would ask young John, why? Why are you here? Why are you doing this Sunday morning? Well, my first response would be it's a reason for my parents to drag me away from Sunday morning football watching. In California, the first game starts usually when church starts, so it was a big battle in our house to get out and to get to church. But by the time I got there, I hung out with my youth group friends. I had some fun at church, and every week in high school there was this big roll of the dice that somebody's cute granddaughter would just show up at church that Sunday. Never really happened. But every week I crossed my fingers. Fast forward another 10 years or so and into my 20s, and you would ask me, John, why? Why do we do this? Why are you here on a Sunday morning? My response in my 20s would have been, because it's a waste of time. Because somebody dragged me here and I'm doing a favor for them. And the reason that I would have said in my 20s that this is a waste of time is because I thought that I can do this. I can get this spirituality thing. I can do this on my own. I can wake up casually on a Sunday and enjoy my morning, maybe go for a run or go for a bike ride and kind of take in the day and just bask in nature and beauty. Can you see some 23-year-old kid saying this? You probably had this conversation with 23-year-olds before. I don't need church. I don't need to sit in a pew, comfortable or uncomfortable. I don't need to be here on a Sunday morning. I don't need to come listen to some boring guy run his mouth and sing songs that really don't connect with me and tunes that I really don't like. I don't need that. I can get that on my own. That rang true in my 20s, and there's people I talk to in their 50s and their 60s, and that still rings true. I don't need Sunday morning in a room with wooden pews. I can do this on my own. See, inside of us, and part of our DNA that separates us and makes us human beings, there's something inside of us that makes us wonder why. Not questions like, why do I come to church? But why am I here? Why do things exist? Why does the earth spin around the sun? Why is there matter in the universe? Why? Why am I here? We ask that question. Every one of you have asked that question because it's inside of you. It's programmed in you to wonder why. Is there something bigger than me? There's something more powerful than me. There's something that transcends my experience and my existence. So we ask that question. And many of us ask it here, but many of us ask it by ourselves. On a Tuesday afternoon as we flip through a nice devotional book, or if we watch an inspiring movie, we connect with that. But also in part of us, in our DNA, is this desire to be in community. Have you been by yourself recently for a long period of time? Not a fun experience. Solitary confinement is one of the worst kinds of torture we can do because it deprives people of something that is basic to humanity, to want to be in relationship with each other. Last week I went to visit Dorothea Johnson, and many of you know Dorothea just turned 91, something like that last week. So I went to hang out with her, and she made for me this 10-page double-sided book of her history on lined paper, writing out in pen. And by the end of our almost 2-hour-long conversation, you can see that her life was filled with joy because she got to sit and talk with somebody. She got to have human interaction and connection. So if that's programmed in us, to want to be in community, and this is programmed in us, the desire to know why, to answer these questions about who we are, why do we exist, why don't we put those two things together? Why do we want to explore what this means together? There's a gospel singer named Donal Lawrence, and he sings a song called Spiritual. And if many of you have heard my singing voice, I'm going to save you singing the chorus of the song. But the chorus goes, you're a natural being having a spiritual... You're not a natural being having a spiritual experience. You're a spiritual being having a natural experience. You're not a natural being having a spiritual experience. You are a spiritual being having a natural experience. These things that are programmed inside of us are spiritual. They are things that want to connect to a being that is unlike us, that doesn't have hands and feet and eyes and ears. We think that when we have those moments of like, aha, I got it, that makes so much sense. God is speaking to me, or the universe is lining up and the stars are working out for me. We think that's the exception, but that should be the rule. That we encounter those moments of God doing something regularly. And our job should be to not sit in a back room by ourselves and bask in those, but to share that story, share that experience with the others, with people sitting next to us, people at our tables at home, with coworkers at work. As many of you know, I don't follow baseball, and I got a couple of comments about how well the Phillies are doing, but I really don't follow baseball to save my life. I'm a huge football fanatic and basketball. And if any of you are watching basketball right now, we are in the second round of the playoffs. And the Golden State Warriors, my hometown team, have set the record this year for most wins in the season. 73-9. A record that was set way back in 1996 that we never thought another team, because they didn't have Michael Jordan, would ever beat that record. And Warriors have done it. They have a coach by the name of Steve Kerr, actually a guy who played on the Bulls with Michael Jordan. And Steve Kerr in a recent interview talked about how he works with his team. And he has 4 pillars that he's set out for the team this year. And they are joy, compassion, mindfulness, and competition. Now we talked about these pillars in this young clergy lunch that I do once a month, and how we can relate these things to kind of, the work that we do and how this matters for the church. And of course the idea of, well, what does competition have to do with the church at all came up. And I said, well, what if we think about it not as competition, but as hunger, as the drive, as the want to win, to want to be there, to want to do it. And if you don't have that, there's no way you're going to win 73 games. That drive, that hunger to want to be here, that question of why do we do this should answer with that. I want to. I'm hungry. I want to know more. I want to explore this side of me that wants to know why I'm here, why the world matters. And I want to explore this drive me that wants to be with other people. Let's do that together. We see that in this morning's story. In the book of Acts, there's a short story about this woman named Lydia, and we get about a sentence and a half of who Lydia is, and we know that she deals purple cloth. Now, in the Roman Empire, purple cloth was Armani. Like, it was a top clothing you could buy. It was actually a law that if you did not fall into a certain social bracket, you weren't even allowed to wear this stuff because it was set aside for the top tier of people. So Lydia sold that stuff. Now, I'm assuming that if she deals purple cloth, she probably does pretty well for herself. She probably does pretty well off. I doubt there's very few Rolls Royce dealers who don't do well for themselves because we're selling things for a high price. So we don't know much about Lydia except that she deals in purple cloth. What we do find out, though, is that there's no mention of her husband. In the Roman Empire 2,000 years ago, women were not considered citizens. It was only the man. And it was the man's business. It was the man's household. The man could vote. The man was one who counted when they did the census, not the women. So Lydia is an anomaly in herself because she's doing something that we never would see 2,000 years ago. But there's something even more special and more important than what she does for an occupation, is that where we find her. This is the first time that Paul and his group of apostles have brought the gospel into Europe. The very first time. And where do we find them? On this Saturday afternoon, they go out to a riverbed to pray. And before they get there, there's already a group of people who are gathered there who are praying. And it is led by this woman named Lydia. And it's a group of women together there praying. Now, Lydia had been exposed to Judaism. She had been around Jews before, but the way the world works, she couldn't really break into that community, into that community, because they're well established and she's not from that line. But she listens to that hunger, to that drive that says, I want to know more. I want to know who this God is that the people around me talk about. So she gathers a group outside the city gates, outside the city limits, next to the riverbed, to worship, to do what we are doing right now, to set aside a time that says right now, for this 45 minutes to an hour and a half, we are going to give our attention to God. What we're doing right now, even though we might be distracted about what we're going to cook for lunch, or what we're going to do Monday morning at work, or what show we're going to watch tonight on HBO, we get distracted, but right now, we come together to set aside time to say, God, our attention is going to you. Our focus is going to you. That is the answer of worship, of why we come here to do this. Notice in this conversation between Lydia, we don't get the American Christian response. Lydia doesn't say, you know what? I'm going to accept Jesus Christ into my heart as my personal Lord and Savior. There's no moment where Lydia says the sinner's prayer. Paul doesn't ask Lydia the question, Lydia, when you die, do you know where you're going to go? We don't have that interaction between the two of these. Paul is amazed that these people are coming together to worship, to set aside time and say, right now, at this moment, we are focusing on God as we do it together. So may you return to pews like these, whether it be Calvary or a different church. And may you come together as one people to say, I need you. I need the community. I need the group in order for this to be a moment of worship. A time where I explore who God is, but as I do it with my brothers and sisters, as I do it with you. So may you, like the warriors, have that drive, have that hunger to want to be here, to want to be children of this God, as we explore what it means, as we explore who we are and what God is doing for us right now.